Okay, I think we're on. I want you to see, I'll link these. Can you see that? Driver charged. This is a lady, 70-year-old lady, 77. She was just killed by somebody supposedly drunk. Now that's the lady. Do you see her? She's either the mother or the grandmother of two girls that were friends with my kids. And it happened right down the street at one of the local stores, Stripes or whatever. I remember the girls. The one girl, I think she had red hair, and they were nice girls, and they used to be friends with my daughter. And so yesterday they said, now, of course they made an arrest. I think it's a white guy. And the DA, Mark Gonzalez, talks about how we're going to crack down, particularly on people that assault people with vehicles. That's what's getting to me. And there was one case, I gave you the name the other day, DeRice, or the other week, who actually hit a man right where I walk, my prayer spot. And he hit him on his bicycle. The man he hit was Hines. And Hines, I guess, was a local, people knew him. He was connected, Politico, community guy, good guy, Andy Hines, who was a regular bicyclist. And so this man, DeRice, when he hit him, he left the scene. And Mr. Gonzalez, the DA, said, we're going to be so tough on crime in this community. I'm going to try that case because we're not going to put up with people who hit other people with vehicles. Now, yesterday, when I was adding the posts about Judge Manuel Banyalas, the Kohler Times said he was doing 75 and a 30, and Sheriff Kalin said they clocked him at 91. And it's not the first time he did it. But Mr. Mark Gonzalez is wearing cowboy hats, talking about sports. And when somebody connected has a history of running over civilians in this fucking town, he's still on the bench. And Mrs. Missy Metairie hangs up a portrait of him to honor him. But this white man that just killed a relative of a friend of my daughter's, he's in jail now. I got some teaching posts that were going to go up. And today was a day of rest. But when I read some of the extra articles on Judge Banyalas, that Sheriff Kalin said they clocked him at 91. And it's not the first time he almost killed somebody with his vehicle. Now tell me, Kohler Times, Stephanie Jimenez, and everybody else about, quote, bloggers who do fake news. And you cover that shit up. Now my friend Crow told me the other day, he recounted the story. What, you want documentary evidence? Verify it by Bob Coleman. Bob's the old man. Crow recounted, which I gave you that story, how a CCPD officer assaulted him and beat the shit out of him right here, actually right close to where this other lady was killed. And I listened. So we're gonna have it documented. You asked Bob Coleman about this, Mr. Gonzalez. Shannon Case recounted the story how Officer Tommy Nichols beat the fuck out of him here. Now you ask Chief Mike Markle if this is true. And Mr. Shannon Case was stopped by Officer Tommy Nichols with the Corpus Christi Police Department. And Crow didn't have anything on him. And later Tommy, a cop, beat the fuck out of him. Crow told me that story even before I knew him. Sitting right here with Jimmy D, who you saw on video yesterday. Okay? And he recounted it to Bob Coleman the other day. And he was assaulted and put in the hospital. And it was a targeted assault. This was not an arrest. This is your cops in this city. And I listen. Because when guys tell me the stories, I listen to see if it changes over a couple years later. Didn't change. There was a new thing to it. When the cops showed up at the Stripes, they knew one of their own officers went out and committed an assault. He said, he told them who did it, and Tommy took off. And he says, those cops were riding like 5 miles an hour. Oh, we'll go get them for you. Like a fucking game? Like kids. Like fucking kids. We'll go get them for you. What do you think, this is a fucking game here in Corpus Christi? This is a true story. Verify it with Shannon Case and Bob Coleman. Because you got a fucking crisis with criminality in this city and in this county. And that was a little detail I left out the first time. And how you get away with fucking crimes in this city is fucking unbelievable to me. Now, you arrested that guy that killed that elderly woman, who was a friend of the mother or grandmother. I just showed you you're on that. But you did all you could to fucking collude and cover up for a criminal judge who should have at least fucking been charged. Because one of the articles said, we're going to see if speed was a factor. I guess 91 fucking miles an hour and 35 is not a factor. You got a fucking criminal county here. And Missy Metairie, you honored that man. The man who said, I'm going to be so tough on crime, people have to pay their debts. And when I read those articles yesterday, I remember reading, even in one of the articles I remember years ago, Quarter Times already redacted it from their site. It was almost, in the article, it was almost an admission that he did wrong because they called him texting or speaking on the phone when he almost murdered that text-out officer. And then I remember reading something that said, but he's a good man. We need a DA that's not sitting around with the cowboy's hat making light of his duty. That's what we need. Why do you get an Anglo man in prison and you got a Mexican guy that sits on the bench? Are you racist? Why don't you judge justly? So today we'll do a little fucking rollout. Remember, you interview Shannon Case. You get the documents on Tommy Nichols when he beat the fuck out of him. You interview him. You know who he is. And find out why you got a fucking criminal department in this city.